what are some things that you would assume about me or about anyone when you first meet them? And do you really base those things on appearance or the way that they hold themselves? One thing you might not be able to guess about me, really, meeting me for the first time, is that I'm deaf. And my mom is also deaf, and so is my twin brother. And according to the National Institute on Deafness, about 13% of the population also has some sort of hearing loss in both ears. And really, of that 13%, there's an even smaller population immersed in deaf culture and part of the deaf community. Deaf culture really means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And similar to many other cultures, deaf culture is rooted in language and shared oppression. Deaf culture is mostly based on sign language, and people can change their expressions or the way that they communicate based on sign, just like how everyone else can speak and change things like with their voice or their speech. And then deaf art really is like a lot like poetry, and just like painting and poetry in the deaf community is a really visual experience, mostly based on movement. And there's even deaf theater, which most of the time are plays that celebrate deaf culture through sign language. It's really cool. However, in the deaf community, there's been an ongoing argument about technology, which includes the use of cochlear implants, hearing aids, and even social media. Some of the community fears that the rise of this technology will destroy deaf culture because it is forcing deaf people to assimilate into a hearing world. However, the rise of technology such as cochlear implants or social media has not diminished deaf culture, because deafness as a cultural identity is what someone makes it, and many people just live with their deafness in a certain way. There is no right way to live or be. To give you some background information, most of the deaf community view their deafness as a gift, and they really wouldn't change anything about it because it is just part of who they are. And most of the time, instead of saying hearing loss, they say deaf gain. Many people in the community, because of that, believe that hearing aids and cochlear implants take away from the culture. However, this causes many people to feel stuck between both worlds. And I really like to use Juliette Corwin as an example, because she slowly has gone deaf her entire life, and she wears cochlear implants. She is an activist, a writer, and a college student, just like we are. She has been excluded from many things in the deaf community because she does wear cochlear implants, and she's treated differently by the hearing community because of her implants as well. She has basically stated that while many hearing people see this type of technology as a solution, she believes that it just allows her to live with her deafness in a certain way. She describes cochlear implants as hearing, but deaf all the same. And I wanted to use her words to describe cochlear implants this way because more than anything, they have allowed her to connect to both the hearing and the deaf community, which is exactly how this technology should be seen, as a bridge between two worlds. However, with social media connecting much of the world, it doesn't always seem to accommodate the deaf community. Some people in the community feel that because social media is unaccommodating but connects the rest of the world, it leaves deaf culture behind. Yet there has been a rise in the interest of deaf culture in the past couple of years due to social media. Members of the deaf community are using social media to try and preserve their culture for generations to come. One example can actually be seen on TikTok, believe it or not, where a woman named Nakia Smith has shown the world what Black American Sign Language is. She makes videos of her older relatives as they showcase to the world their culture. Two other people in the community that have used social media to advocate and share their story are Derek Troy and Ryan Commerson. Derek has used social media to promote his business while engaging both hearing and deaf customers. While Ryan, on the other hand, believes in taking advantage of the tools around him to advocate for the deaf community and says that social media has also given the deaf community tools they need to mobilize, to connect, and to organize. These things are starting to bring more awareness to the deaf community, which changes the perception that society has of them. Social media has helped to connect both the deaf and hearing communities in the past 20 years. Now, this could be the first time that some of you have thought about just how important deaf culture is to the deaf community. This could even be the first time you've heard about deaf culture. Even though it goes unnoticed most of the time in the hearing community, deaf culture is a livelihood to a lot of people, and preserving deaf culture means preserving a language and preserving lives. When given this gift of technology, why not put it to good use? It is important to be accommodating and to give a voice to those who haven't really always had one, especially in the era of new technology. But it is more important to understand that there is no set right way to live or to be, especially in the deaf community. And then some questions that I got from group. One was, how do you bring enough awareness to the deaf community without diminishing deaf culture? And I really want to say that it's just really important to let people from the community speak for themselves. And social media is actually really beginning to accommodate to the deaf community and to give people in the community a platform. And it's very important to listen to those people. Another question I got was, what are ways you believe that deaf culture can garner more attention and more awareness? And like I said, in the past couple of years, deaf culture has gotten a lot more attention on social media than it has in the past, which has really allowed deaf voices to kind of say more of like what they want to say, and that they can advocate for themselves, which is incredibly important as well. Another one I got was, what are some ways you believe deaf culture can be preserved? And I think that education and awareness are really important, especially with social media being more accessible to the deaf community. And then the last one, I think, is, what ideas do you have in mind to create a more inclusive environment for the deaf community? And again, education. I think that everyone should have a very basic level of understanding of American Sign Language and at least what deaf culture is. Thanks!